Chicago Bears rookie minicamp has given us a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about Zavion Thomas and how he continues to show out, and the expectations are rising for him according to words from his head coaches. We're also going to look at players, that UDFAs that could actually make the Chicago Bears 53-man roster or the practice squad, and the issues with the defensive line are starting to be talked about more and more, and why Dennis Allen has taken the bull by the horns in regards to that. We're talking about all that plus more right after this. What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today, y'all. And Zavion Thomas was a controversial pick for a lot of Chicago Bears fans, and I continue to maintain that a lot of the reasons why Bears fans look at this pick as controversial because they're hearing the term gadget player, which is, and then they're making lazy kind of assumptions about what that means, right? You know, people are using the term gadget player to mean that a player isn't good at something when it's actually not. It could mean that they can excel in multiple ways, right? And we already heard from Zavion Thomas himself in rookie minicamp and why he feels comfortable, operating as a running back at times. But again, like I said before, let's not overlook the fact that this guy is a legitimate wide receiver that can catch passes as well and is a solid enough route runner also. Now, I don't think he's the route runner to the level that we've seen like Luther Burden or Colston Loveland, who are the absolute best route runners on this team, but he is a legitimate wide receiver threat as well, right? And Zavion Thomas is showing already a lot in rookie minicamp why Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears were attracted to drafting him here. Press Taylor, the Chicago Bears offensive coordinator, said this: "You see the speed. He's going to have to earn it. It's really just growing as an entire player," right? Now, Zavion Thomas, to say that I'm not saying that he's not a risk, right? It's definitely a risk for the Chicago Bears, especially when you look at what some of the needs were for that Chicago Bears team, or for this Chicago Bears team. We still have the same needs, right? So you're looking at that and you're still saying like, okay, like you went luxury in a lot of ways, and is this going to end up working out for you? But at 5'10", 192 pounds, what he's bringing to the table is a player that can do a lot, right? And we've already seen like Ben Johnson use Luther Burden, he used DJ Moore, right? He used those guys in the running game. Now having somebody like Zavion Thomas, who averaged 11.4 yards per reception in college and had 7 touchdowns over his 4 years in college, only 3 of those years really playing a lot and being used a lot. This is a guy that if it ends up working out, it adds another wrinkle to this team that, again, as we've talked about so many times, and I know it's becoming like the thing here now, is that it's about scheme. That's really what this thing is about for the Chicago Bears team this year. It is about scheme. And how are you using scheme and those type of things to open up added wrinkles to your team and find an added edge? And Zavion Thomas has that chance to do that. Right now, how much does he do that in year one? We've already talked about in the wide receiver depth chart, he's going to be trying to pass up Khalif Raymond and Jahade Walker. I think Jahade Walker is going to make a big case himself for exactly why he should be, the wide receiver 3 on this team. So I'm not saying that Zavion Thomas is going to pass up and become the wide receiver 3 necessarily in his rookie year, but watch the snap count go up for this guy as the season goes on. If Ben Johnson trusts him and he makes the most of his opportunities, this is a guy that has an opportunity to affect the game of football for the Chicago Bears in 3 different areas: passing, receiving, and special teams. And we talked about, and I know special teams is looked at as something that, if you have a good special teams, I think people appreciate it when they have one. But when you have a bad special teams, it stands out good. If you have just an okay one, you may not talk about it. But Zavion Thomas has been talked about at the same burst of speed that could be a player and a weapon that's like at a almost Devin Hester level, right? So, we'll see what's going to happen there. Press Taylor and Ben Johnson are going to really have to make that work, develop this kid, get him in there, find where he and what schemes and what lineups he works best in, and we'll see what's going to happen in regards to that one. But I think in regard of it is that it seems like Zavion Thomas is a guy that if you make sure you can get the ball in his hands, he can make some things happen for you. And that in a Ben Johnson offense is something that you need. We got time playmakers on this team. Now let's go out and find that versatile weapon, and we could have that guy in Zavion Thomas. And, at this point now, players are here. Keep making, we keep talking about, like, let's appreciate the players and let them develop for what they are. At this point, Zavion Thomas didn't say, hey, take me over an edge, right? That wasn't on him. Let's see what he can go out there and get. Speed can't be taught, but I tell you what, speed alone doesn't make you a weapon for an offense. You have to have more than that. And the question is can Ben Johnson and Ben Johnson and Press Taylor get more out of Zavion Thomas than him just being a speed guy out there? The 4.2 40 speed is great, but can you catch the ball? Can you actually run between the tackles? Can you add a dynamic to this team where you can make yourself a usable weapon for this team? And we're going to see what happens in regards to that. But Zavion Thomas, somebody who's definitely stood out so far in rookie minicamp, and somebody that it seems like the expectations from this coaching staff continue to grow on what they want to see out of him. And let's just hope that he can actually be that weapon for the Chicago Bears and actually develop into that, because if he does, it adds a lot for this team. With that said, let's talk about this. Dan Ritterer, talked a little bit about the Chicago Bears and what's going on with the Bears, defensive line. Before we get into the comments from him, I want to talk about the comments from Dennis Allen in regards to this and what they're trying to do here. He said this: "We will coach better than a year ago. It's a combination of us being able to coach better and those guys taking the next step. I think we have some pretty good pieces to work with." It also goes on to say this: "We had a lot of discussions this offseason about a lot of different things. One of those things we identified was me. We focused so much on installing all the scheme last year because it was a brand new, and we do have a high volume of things we carry in defense. We focused so much on that we lost sight of some of the fundamentals and techniques that takes us to the function. To do those things, I think we were as fundamentally sound defensively as we need to be. So how do we have to coach it better? Well, let's minimize how much we're focused on the scheme, okay? And let's focus on not what we're going to do, but how we're going to do it. I think that's how we're going to improve." I love hearing that Dennis Allen is taking the ownership of, we talked a lot about how we can improve as a team, but one of the things that is I need to be better as a coach. I need to be better at preparing these guys. I need to be better at X, Y, Z. And so I think when it comes down to it is that you want to hear that, right? When you have guys like Austin Booker who are moldable, ready to go, and, showed a lot last year, like how much better can you get out of that? How much better can you improve as a tackling team as well, right? Like how much better can you improve in your fundamentals in stopping the run? Like those type of things are really important, right? So it seems like based off this comment from Dennis Allen that they have confidence that they have the ingredients on this team to improve. The question is him as the cook, what can he get out of it, right? And so acknowledging where you had shortcomings last year is part of the thing that separates this coaching staff from the last coaching staff that we have. I'm not even going to dive too much into that, but I appreciate the accountability and clarity that we have from the coaching staff that we have here in Chicago, because these guys, they take their job seriously and they understand how much coaching makes a difference. And I think sometimes fans lose sight of how much coaching actually does create that difference for your team, how much coaching can create that gap and help you overcome some things. And that's really what you have to do. The football world is looking at the Chicago Bears and the defensive line this year. Because if the defensive line ends up being what limits the Chicago Bears team, Ryan Poles, Ben Johnson, Dennis Allen, all these guys, rightfully so, are going to get the criticism from it, because guess what? You are the guys that decided the talent coming into this roster, so now you have to do things. Now, to get into Dan Ritterer's comments in regards to that from The Athletic, he said this: "It's like you need dinner certain nights, and you're like, okay, what's in the fridge? And you open the fridge, and there's not much there, and you're like, all right, this is what we got. We're going to figure whether it's PB&J or this half portion of leftovers over here or what. Whatever it is, maybe it's string cheese and an apple. Sometimes you just got to make the best of what's in there, and that's what the Bears are going to do as they head into the 26th season. That's going to be challenging." So when you talk about that, right, what are the Bears trying to make the most out of? They're trying to make the most out of a defensive line that showed last year you didn't get enough pressure on quarterbacks, right? And I think that's the thing we have to start at first, the pressure, right? Sacks are one thing, pressure is another, right? I think sacks are a result of how consistently you can get pressure. If you can pressure the opposing offense, that is the biggest thing here, and that's what the Bears are trying to do. Now, you got 10 sacks last year from Montez Sweat. You had Austin Booker, who missed a lot of games, but was if you look at that pace of what he did over a full season, you're probably looking at an 8.5 sack season from Austin Booker, right? Keep in mind, he even when he did play, he wasn't fully healthy to start off with. So you're looking at that part first, right? And so Austin Booker, Montez Sweat, those are the two that you're first looking for. If you can get double-digit sacks out of each of those guys, that goes a long way, right? Javon Dexter, who's really good in the pass game, has some questionability in that rushing game. He also had a solid season with sacks for a defensive tackle. So now it comes down to Dayo Odeyingbo, right? What can he actually bring to this team? Because a motivated Dayo, I don't know if the motivated part matters or not, but they've already talked about moving Dayo more to the interior where he has been better as a pass rusher. Dayo Odeyingbo was always a better run defender on the outside, a better pass guy on the interior, right? So now if you're moving him more towards the interior and playing him there a little bit more, how much does that add to what you're doing here? You already got guys like Shemar Turner who, Ryan Poles talked about him having the same type of upside of guys like Luther Burden and Colston Loveland. So if you believe that, let's see what you got in that one. You brought in some depth. Neville Gallimore, Contavious Street, right? But overall with this, it still leaves a lot, right? Between Daniel Hardy, Dayo Odeyingbo, and what you have there, Jordan Vandenberg as well, like as a guy that the Bears drafted, you hope with the scheme fit that he has with speed that he's going to bring some things. But you're using a lot of the same ingredients and hoping to get some better stuff out of it. And hopefully they're able to do that. This is where coaching matters the most. This is where coaching creates a separation for you, because if your coaching is able to elevate the performance that you get from these players, that's a big part of it. And I also think don't overlook the fact of how Dennis Allen specifically schemes, right? And I've said that a lot, right? With the fact that how he likes to bring in an extra defensive lineman as the third linebacker, actually have speed at that third linebacker spot, whether it means bringing a defensive back or something in that spot. That what he does there and the comfortability he has in the players that are going to be there and play that for the Chicago Bears are going to open up a lot for this team too. So that's what this team is really trying to look at here. The defensive line concerns are real, and I don't think anybody's going to try to tell you that it's not a real concern here. The question about is how much better, since that's the marker that you've laid out here now, how much better can you coach these guys up? That is a legitimate concern and a thought here. Austin Booker, Dayo Odeyingbo, Shemar Turner, Montez Sweat, Jordan Vandenberg, all these guys, Javon Dexter, Grady Jarrett, who you can't ignore. Like, Grady Jarrett, you're a vet. Like, you are a veteran on this team. And, we've seen some vets that switched teams and had a little bit rough first years, and they play better as it goes on. And maybe Grady Jarrett can be that and have a much better second year than what he gave us in the first year, because it was largely disappointing. Now, relief is coming, right? And I think in the evaluation of this, you can come off Dayo Odeyingbo's contract. You can come off Grady Jarrett's contract. The combination of those two things saves you almost $20 million right there, right? So you have the flexibility to do it next year, but we can't keep waiting till next year to address such a big need, especially when you're talking about the NFC North, making the next step as in the development of your team, being a better team. You need to see some of that improvement this year. And hopefully between health overall throughout the defense, some of the improvements and acquisitions that we've made, as well as players taking another step, again, familiarity with the system, familiarity with each other. Hopefully we can start seeing that from this team, and we'll see. But with that said, we started this episode off talking about a rookie in Zavion Thomas and what he can bring in, the dynamic he could possibly bring to the Chicago Bears team. I want to take it a step further. I want to look at some of these UDFAs and talk about these guys that have a chance to make the final 53-man roster or at least the practice squad. Of the players that can make the final 53-man roster, I think one of the first names that you have to bring up is Caden Barnett, right? The offensive lineman there out of Wyoming. And you look at this guy and you think his work ethic, the versatility, the vanilla gorilla, as they do call him, right? This is a guy that has played every position on the offensive line. And so because of that, I think that the way that you can develop him says a lot. I also think the contract that the Bears gave him, the fact that they gave him a $30,000 signing bonus, $277,000 contract, that shows that the Bears have a level of belief in him that he can actually make this final 53-man roster. Ben Johnson said this in regards to Barnett. He plays the way we want to play. So there's a physical demeanor about him. That's what stands out. First and foremost, I think we got a couple of really good offensive line coaches. When you have a guy that has traits like that are harder to coach, you can help clean up the technique and things of that nature. When the mind's right, I have a lot of confidence in our coaching staff to get the rest of it. And Dan Rouchard working with a guy like Caden Barnett, who has so much versatility on that offensive line, that has done it in a place like Wyoming, if it's going to work out, Dan Rouchard is going to find the talent in that. And I would not be surprised at all if Caden Barnett actually does make the final 53-man roster and actually plays some snaps for the Chicago Bears team. They need versatility. They need depth. They need consistency. If he can bring those things for the Bears this season as an undrafted free agent, he's going to have an opportunity to definitely make the final 53-man roster. Next guy up that I want to talk about that I do think has a chance to make the final 53 is a guy like Squirrel White. Now, I talked about him when I did my UDFA videos. When it comes down to it, Jahade Walker made this team as an undrafted player last season. Jack Sanborn made this team as an undrafted free agent, right? He's come back to this team. So we've seen undrafted free agents actually make this team, right? Now, Squirrel White is going to have an upward battle because of the wide receiver room to make the final 53, but the practice squad, I think he legitimately can. Him and Amari Kelly both have a chance to make the practice squad in large, right? When you look at Kelly, for sure, 6 foot, 2 seasons at Auburn, 1 at Middle Tennessee. He ended his collegiate career in Michigan State, had 1,629 total yards, 105 receptions, and then he had 5 total catches, in his first 2 seasons at home as well. So there's talent there when it comes down to it. Then you look at Squirrel White. First 3 seasons at Tennessee, he played in every single game. As a sophomore, he had 67 receptions for 803 yards. At 5'10", he's very similar to Zavion Thomas, so we'll see, right, who the Bears did draft in the 3rd round. But I think when you look at the future of your special teams player, gadget players, whatever you want to have, both those guys have a chance to make it. Next up, Jaden Loving, right? We know that the Bears didn't address this defensive line in the offseason like people really did think they did, or think that they should have. Jordan Vandenberg is the guy that they drafted in the 2nd round, or in the 6th round. Then you look at a guy like Jaden Loving, right? A guy that played at Wake Forest. When you look at what he does, he fits the mold exactly of what Dennis Allen wants for this team, right? 6'1", 309 pounds. At 309 pounds, he ran a 4.8 40. So you talk about bringing size, speed, and power. He does that wholeheartedly, right? He didn't do it at the draft combine. If he did it at the draft combine, he would have been the 3rd fastest among all defensive linemen had he did it. He ran that at his pro day. But I think when you look at it, the Bears could have found themselves a guy, and this is why going to pro days is important, and being able to really read the draft board, because they went to his pro day, they saw him at the pro day, and then you were able to get him as a UDFA, and you could have been very high on him. Now, I don't know for sure. I haven't had those conversations with Ben Johnson or Ryan Poles or anything like that, but I do think Jaden Loving, for a Chicago Bears team that needs depth, Jaden Loving has a chance to absolutely make this team. He has the size, he has the speed, he has the power. The technique thing is going to be something that needs to be worked out a little bit, but as Ben Johnson said, if you trust your positional coaches, the technique is the thing that you have the most faith that you can work out with players, because you trust your coaching staff to develop and to have an eye for talent. Jaden Loving is another guy that could absolutely make the final 53 man. I think he can make the final 53 man roster. If not, he can definitely make the practice squad as well. Another guy that I want to bring up is Jaron Kump, another offensive lineman out of Utah, 6'5", 313 pounds, 11-inch hands. People make a lot about hand size in regards to that one. This guy's bigger than both Logan Jones and Garrett Bradbury. Now, size doesn't automatically mean you're, what you're going to be as a player, but I do think that it is another player that you're giving Dan Rouchar a chance to work with and mold. If Dan Rouchar ends up believing in this kid's upside, then I believe in it. That's how much I believe in what Dan Rouchar and what his accolades as a head coach, as a positional coach, and so you do that. Last season, Kump started all 12 games at center, and this guy could be a guy that is a backup. The Chicago Bears very much could have gotten their future center and his backup in Logan Jones in the draft and Jordan Kump as a UDFA. They could very well have gotten it. Garrett Bradbury, again, as the veteran, is going to probably be selected to go as the starter initially. We'll see what happens in regards to that, but I think the Bears got them another solid offensive lineman here in Jaron Kump. We just got to see what he's going to end up being able to turn into for the Chicago Bears. Another guy that I've heard things about from rookie minicamp that actually surprised me is the kicker, Gabriel Placencia. I completely murdered his last name, but I think when you look at it, right, having 2 kickers on your roster is not typically what you do, but you want to keep a kicker around on the practice squad. I think when you look at it, Cario Santos missed 2 games with injuries last year, and how that opened up the door for Jake Moody, who then ended up leaving. He ended up finishing the season with the Commanders. But I think when you look at it, he's gotten Gabriel has gotten the nickname the Hefty Lefty, right? 245 pounds at San Diego University. So we'll see what happens, right? But I do think that he's not the long-term replacement for Santos, but I do think he's a guy that you could keep around in your practice squad so you have a kicker to keep warm when it comes down to it. So I think that's another guy that's trying to make a case and a name for himself. And then another name that's popped up as well that, we'll take it. It's a long snapper, but Bo Gardner, right, is another guy that, the Bears, we've had the same long snapper for a while before we ended up moving on, right? He's going to compete with Luke Elkin, another undrafted free agent as well from last season, for the spot of long snapper for the Chicago Bears. We'll see if the Bears bring back Scott Daly. Right now, it doesn't seem like it is. Seems like the Bears are content with letting the competition play out between two young, inexperienced long snappers. Ben Johnson saying this: "We feel good about the two guys we have in the building, and it's up to one of them to grab the job that's up for grabs now. If we can't get that done the way we need it done, then of course there's other options out there." So Bo Gardner and Luke Elkin both are going to have an opportunity to earn and be the permanent long snapper for the Chicago Bears. We just got to see if it's going to end up working out for them, and we'll see, right? But overall, the Chicago Bears have a lot of things they need to look at, man. I think right now, when you look at this team, there's real juice for Zavion Thomas. I believe that. I believe the words of this coaching staff, and I don't think they're just blowing smoke in the name of that. And the speed is dangerous, but how can he add skill on top of that? The Bears defensive line is making a bet, but it seems like they're more so than betting on just the moves. They're betting on Dennis Allen to coach better. And that's a bet that I like the Chicago Bears feel comfortable making, is betting on your head coach. We got to see how these things work out. Between Zavion Thomas, can he be a real weapon? How worried are you guys about the defensive line? And has any undrafted free agent, what you've heard about them, kind of stood out to you? Let me know that. Drop your thoughts down below. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Make sure you guys hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. You can follow us at Shy Bear Central on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. ChicagoBearCentral@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related, but that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.